What if the treasure you've been chasing isn't just gold, but the journey itself? Welcome to the story of Santiago, a young shepherd boy whose life is about to change forever. The Alchemist isn't just a tale of adventure, it's a guide to following your dreams, reading the signs of the universe, and transforming your life. Chapter 1: The Dream That Wouldn't Let Go. What if the dream you keep ignoring is actually the map to your destiny? That's how our story begins, with a boy in a dream he cannot escape. Santiago was not the sort of boy who sat still. He was a shepherd by choice, not by inheritance. His parents wanted him to become a priest, a man of the church, someone safe and respectable. But Santiago chose sheep and open skies. Why? Because sheep gave him freedom. They needed little, and in exchange, they allowed him to wander across fields, listen to the wind, and read books under olive trees. But there was something Santiago's sheep could not give him, answers to a question that pulsed inside his heart. Is there something more waiting for me? And then came the dream. 2 nights in a row, Santiago dreamed of a child leading him to the Egyptian pyramids. The child would laugh and say, "Here lies your treasure." And then, before the dream could reveal more, Santiago would wake up, heart racing. He could not shake it. He had never even seen the pyramids, but now they called to him as if they knew his name. At first, he dismissed it. Dreams were dreams, but the more he tried to ignore it, the more the dream pressed on him like a weight. It felt less like fantasy and more like a whisper from the universe. And Santiago, though young, had already learned something important from watching his sheep. When life keeps circling back to the same sign, you had better pay attention. So he did. He visited a gypsy woman who interpreted dreams. She was old, mysterious, and had the kind of eyes that looked straight into the soul. After hearing Santiago's story, she leaned closer and said, "The treasure is real. It lies at the foot of the Egyptian pyramids. If you go, you will find it." Santiago was stunned. Part of him wanted to laugh it off. Was he really going to trust his future to a dream? But another part of him, the part that had always longed for adventure, lit up with fire. The first lesson: listen to the whispers. This is where the story quietly hands us our first piece of wisdom. The call to adventure doesn't arrive with a drumroll. It comes as a whisper. A tug at the edges of our daily life. A dream, a thought that won't let go, a quiet nudge saying, there is more to your story. Most people ignore these nudges, they dismiss them as impractical. But Santiago? He listened, and that decision, to listen, would change everything. On his way back from the gypsy, Santiago wandered into a town square where he met a man unlike any other he had seen before. He was dressed in a strange robe, his eyes sparkling with mischief and wisdom. He introduced himself as Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Now, this was no ordinary meeting. Melchizedek seemed to know Santiago's heart better than Santiago himself. He spoke of the boy's dream, of the treasure in Egypt, and of something far greater, the idea of a personal legend. A personal legend, he said, is your life's destiny. It is what you have always wanted to accomplish. And when you truly desire something, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. Imagine being a simple shepherd and hearing this. The boy's heart pounded with both excitement and fear. Could it be true? Could the universe really be on his side? Melchizedek then told Santiago something else, that everyone begins life knowing their personal legend, but as time passes, fear and routine bury it. Only a few remain brave enough to chase it. Santiago was given a choice, to stay safe with his sheep, or to risk everything for the possibility of treasure and, more importantly, the possibility of truly living his destiny. The spark before the fire. This chapter of Santiago's journey reminds us of a truth many forget. Every great adventure begins with a decision. Not a guarantee, not a plan carved in stone, just a decision to step beyond what is comfortable. For Santiago, it all began with a recurring dream. For us, it might be an idea we can't stop thinking about, a skill we long to learn, or a path that seems too wild to be logical but too persistent to ignore. The boy hadn't yet sold his sheep or boarded a ship, but the seed was planted. And when a seed like that is planted in the human heart, it has only 2 choices: to die in the soil of fear, or to grow into the adventure of a lifetime. Chapter 2: A Stranger in the Town Square. Sometimes, the universe speaks through strangers. Santiago's life was about to change, not with a fanfare, not with an earthquake, but with a simple meeting in the town square. The boy was wandering back from his visit to the gypsy when he noticed a man watching him intently. He was no ordinary man. He wore a robe that seemed out of time, and his eyes sparkled as though they held every secret of the world. This was Melchizedek, the king of Salem. At first, Santiago was cautious. He had met many people, but none quite like this. Melchizedek spoke with authority but also with warmth. He asked Santiago to tell him about his dream, and the boy did. As he described the recurring vision of a treasure near the Egyptian pyramids, Melchizedek nodded knowingly. "Ah, you are seeking your personal legend," he said. Santiago paused. He had heard of legends in stories and old books, but the idea that each person had a personal purpose? That was new. The concept of the personal legend. Melchizedek explained, every person knows their personal legend, the true desire of their heart. It is not just a wish, it is destiny calling. But as people grow, fear and doubt cloud their path. Many forget their personal legend entirely. People abandon their dreams for comfort, said the king. They choose safety over adventure, routine over destiny. But those who follow their personal legend, they are the ones who truly live. Santiago listened, a spark growing in his chest. This wasn't just about treasure. This was about purpose, about life itself. The test of courage. Melchizedek then offered Santiago a challenge. He could stay with his flock and live a life of certainty, or he could take a step into the unknown and pursue the treasure. The boy hesitated. He had never traveled far. The desert seemed endless and dangerous. But something inside him, a whisper from the dream, a pulse from the heart, urged him forward. Before leaving, the king of Salem gave Santiago 2 stones, Urim and Thummim, tools to help him read omens. Black or white, yes or no, they would guide him when choices seemed impossible. These stones are simple, said Melchizedek, but they remind you to trust the language of the world. When you follow the signs, the universe will help you. Santiago pocketed the stones, feeling a strange mix of excitement and fear. His life had changed in an instant. The sheep were no longer the center of his world, the dream, the treasure, and the adventure awaited. The first step. That night, Santiago lay awake thinking. He realized something profound. To chase a dream is to risk everything. And yet, not to chase it might mean losing everything that made life meaningful. He finally made the decision. He would sell his flock and take the first step toward the unknown. The world had called, and he was ready to answer. It was a simple act, selling sheep, packing his bag, but it marked the beginning of a journey that would test his courage, teach him patience, and reveal truths that no classroom could ever offer. The lesson. This chapter teaches us that life-changing guidance can appear when least expected. A stranger, a chance encounter, a spark of wisdom, sometimes all it takes is one conversation to shift your path forever. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all, the first step toward your personal legend is always the hardest, but also the most important. Without action, dreams remain just dreams. With action, they become reality, or at least the adventure that leads to it. Chapter 3, Sand, Gold, and Broken Trust. Sometimes, the path to your dream begins with losing everything you thought you had. Santiago had left Spain with his heart full of hope and his bag full of coins from selling his sheep. The wind whispered promises of adventure, the road ahead shimmered with possibilities, and the pyramids seemed closer than ever in his imagination. But reality had a way of testing dreams early. Upon arriving in Tangier, Africa, Santiago felt the thrill of freedom. The streets were alive with colors, smells, and sounds he had never experienced. He approached a man who offered to guide him to the treasure, promising a shortcut across the desert. Eager and trusting, Santiago handed over all his money. The man smiled, then disappeared into the crowd, leaving Santiago with nothing, no guide, no coins, just a sharp, sinking feeling of betrayal. It was the first taste of the harsh truth. The world is not always kind, and dreams can be tested the moment you step out of safety. Fear, doubt, and regret rushed in. For a moment, Santiago considered giving up, returning to his flock, and forgetting about treasure. But deep down, the dream still called. The pyramids still waited. And somewhere in the depths of the bustling city, Santiago realized something important. Loss is often the first step toward growth. The Crystal Merchant. With no money and no plan, Santiago wandered the streets until he stumbled into a small crystal shop. The merchant looked weary and cautious, yet Santiago saw an opportunity. He offered to work for the merchant in exchange for food and a place to stay. Days turned into weeks. Santiago cleaned the shop, arranged the crystals, and learned the art of patience. But he also observed the merchant closely. The merchant had once dreamed of traveling to Mecca, a journey he had promised himself decades ago. But fear, routine, and comfort had kept him in the shop, selling crystal and watching life pass by. Santiago saw the reflection of what could have happened to him if he had abandoned his dream. Lessons from the glass. Through his work, Santiago discovered that even in a small, ordinary shop, life could be full of lessons. 1. Patience and persistence matter. Every crystal needed polishing, every sale required attention. The smallest efforts built a foundation for greater success. 2. Opportunities hide in plain sight. By improving the shop, Santiago increased customers and profits, realizing that even setbacks contain hidden treasures. 3. Fear is the enemy of action. The merchant's unfulfilled dream reminded Santiago that hesitation could freeze the heart, but courage moved it forward. Santiago also learned to observe the world with curiosity. The wind, the birds, even the movement of the people in the marketplace all spoke a silent language. Omens, he realized, could appear anywhere, not just in dreams. The first taste of triumph. As weeks passed, Santiago helped the crystal merchant modernize the shop, attracting more customers and increasing income. He discovered the satisfaction of creating change, of turning hardship into growth. But even as he thrived, he never forgot the treasure. The lesson was clear: the path to your personal legend is rarely straight. It curves through failure, teaches patience, and demands resilience. Every obstacle contains a lesson if you choose to see it. Chapter 3 reminds us that setbacks are not the end, they are the beginning of true understanding. Losing money, being betrayed, and starting over might feel like defeat, but they teach you how to adapt, work hard, and trust yourself. The world will test you, sometimes harshly. But with patience, courage, and attention to signs, you can transform obstacles into stepping stones toward your dreams. Santiago's journey was no longer just about treasure. It was about learning to trust the journey itself. Chapter 4: A Caravan Across the Desert. The desert is vast, but the heart is vaster still. After months in Tangier, Santiago finally had enough money and courage to continue his journey. The next step was not a bustling city or familiar streets, it was the endless desert, stretching under the scorching sun and glittering stars. He joined a caravan heading toward Egypt, unaware that this stretch of sand would become a school for patience, observation, and understanding life's hidden language. The Caravan of Souls. Traveling with the caravan, Santiago observed a tapestry of humanity. Merchants, travelers, and pilgrims all moved with purpose, yet each carried their own burdens, fears, and dreams. It was a moving reminder: every person is on a journey, every heart has a personal legend, even if unspoken. Amid the hum of camels and shifting dunes, Santiago met a man unlike any he had encountered before, the Englishman. He was scholarly, polite, and always carrying books. His obsession? Alchemy. He dreamed of learning the secret of turning any metal into gold, a pursuit as mystical as Santiago's treasure. The Englishman had studied countless books, yet he had little practical experience. Santiago noticed that while knowledge is valuable, it is incomplete without living the lessons it teaches. Through their conversations, Santiago learned. Wisdom comes from observation, not just theory. The desert itself held lessons that no book could teach. Every journey has teachers, sometimes they are people, sometimes nature, sometimes the silence between words. Patience is essential, the desert moves slowly, and rushing only brings fatigue and mistakes. The Englishman introduced Santiago to alchemy and theory, speaking of the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life. Santiago listened, fascinated, yet he felt the pull of his own path. The journey was as much about internal transformation as any physical treasure. The desert as a teacher. The desert tested Santiago in subtle ways. Days were blistering, nights were freezing, and the horizon seemed endless. The wind whispered secrets, the sand shifted in mysterious patterns, and mirages teased him with illusions. Santiago learned to read the signs: the color of the sky, the direction of the wind, the patterns of birds. He realized that the desert was not an obstacle, it was a teacher. Each challenge forced him to listen, observe, and trust. And in that vast emptiness, Santiago began to understand a deeper truth: the universe speaks in silence, and only those who pay attention can hear its messages. The first glimpse of courage. During the journey, the caravan faced threats from tribal wars and natural dangers. Santiago's courage was tested. Each moment of fear became an opportunity to act with awareness and clarity. He learned that courage is not the absence of fear but the decision to move forward despite it. By the time they reached the oasis, Santiago was no longer just a boy with a dream. He had become a young man learning the rhythms of life, the language of omens, and the subtle art of trusting both the heart and the world. The lesson. Chapter 4 reminds us that journeys are more than distance, they are transformation. We meet people who challenge our thinking, places that test our patience, and experiences that teach us to see the world differently. The desert showed Santiago that the path to treasure and to personal legend is as much about learning how to listen and act as it is about reaching a destination. And in the silence between the dunes, he began to hear the whispers of the universe more clearly than ever before. Chapter 5: The Language Without Words. The world speaks in silence, and only those who listen can understand its secrets. Santiago's journey across the desert was not just a test of endurance, it was a test of perception. The sun beat down relentlessly, the sand shifted beneath the caravan's camels, and yet, amid the vast emptiness, the young shepherd discovered a strange truth: everything in the world communicates if you pay attention. The lesson. Chapter 5 teaches that life's true language is often silent. The world speaks in omens, in patterns, and in the pulse of nature. Those who learn to interpret these signs move closer to their destiny, while those who ignore them risk wandering endlessly. Santiago learned that by listening deeply, trusting intuition, and observing the world with care, he could navigate the desert of life and the desert of the heart with confidence and purpose. Santiago noticed the wind, the clouds, the birds, and even the shifting patterns of sand. At first, these were just observations, passing curiosities. But slowly, he realized that each movement carried meaning. A flock of birds might signal water nearby, a sudden change in wind could hint at danger, and the way the desert seemed to sigh at night spoke to those willing to hear. The Englishman, with all his books, tried to explain life through formulas and theories. Santiago realized that knowledge without understanding is empty. Life doesn't always speak in words, it whispers, gestures, and moves around you, waiting for you to interpret its signs. The concept of omens became clear to Santiago. These were signs, moments of coincidence that felt too precise to be random. The universe, he began to understand, was alive and attentive. It noticed desires, courage, and fears. And it responded. Everything in the world has a soul, he thought, and if you learn its language, the universe will guide you toward your personal legend. Santiago started to see connections where before he saw only chance. A sudden rain, a peculiar conversation, the flight of a bird, all carried messages meant to teach, warn, or encourage. Lessons from nature. The desert itself became a silent teacher. Patience, the desert does not hurry. Learning to wait and observe is key to understanding its rhythms. Attention, small details often contain the greatest truths. The universe communicates in subtleties. Courage, the vast emptiness can intimidate, but fear can be transformed into clarity when one listens to the signs. Through this practice, Santiago began to feel a deep connection to the world. He realized that his journey was not only toward a physical treasure but also toward understanding the language of life itself. In one quiet moment, Santiago watched the desert at sunset, and everything seemed alive. The wind carried stories, the sand held memories, and the horizon promised adventures yet to come. He understood that the treasure was not just gold or jewels, it was knowledge, growth, and harmony with the soul of the world. Santiago's heart swelled with excitement and reverence. Every step he took now carried weight, every choice mattered, and every observation could hold the key to progress. The boy who once only followed his sheep had learned to follow the invisible threads connecting all things. Chapter 6: Love in the Oasis. True love never stops a dream, it strengthens it. The caravan finally arrived at the oasis, a lush island of life in the heart of the desert. Palm trees swayed gently, water shimmered under the sun, and birds sang songs of hope. For Santiago, the oasis was more than a place of rest, it was a turning point. Among the palm trees, Santiago saw her, Fatima. She was not just beautiful, there was a quiet strength in her eyes, a calm confidence that seemed to understand the desert's secrets. Their meeting was brief, yet the connection was immediate, as if their souls recognized one another across time. Fatima, like the desert itself, taught Santiago that life is about balance. She did not demand he abandon his quest, instead, she embodied patience, faith, and unconditional support. Lessons in love. Through Fatima, Santiago realized that love is not a chain, it is a source of courage. True love encourages growth, rather than creating dependency. She said simply, "If you truly love me, you will pursue your personal legend. And when you return, I will be here." This was a revelation. Many fear that love will trap them, that it will force compromise. But Santiago understood that love can coexist with ambition, dreams, and destiny. In fact, it can amplify them. The oasis as a teacher. The oasis was more than romance, it was a living classroom. Here, Santiago saw patience and timing. Just as the desert must be respected, love requires understanding and calm. Faith in the journey, the heart can trust in the future even when the path seems uncertain. Connection with all things, people, nature, and dreams are intertwined in a delicate, meaningful web. Even amid the beauty, the oasis held warnings. Santiago learned that dangers lurk even in paradise. The desert's tribes could threaten travelers, and vigilance was as necessary as trust. Life, he realized, is a delicate balance between openness and awareness. Love and the personal legend. Fatima's presence reinforced a truth Santiago had felt but not fully understood. Personal destiny and human connection are not opposites. Love is not an anchor, it is a guide. True companions will support your dreams, not demand you abandon them. This understanding strengthened Santiago's resolve. The treasure, the journey, and the lessons of the desert were no longer abstract, they were entwined with the rhythm of life, of human connection, and of the choices he would make. The lesson. Chapter 6 reminds us that love is a partner in the pursuit of our dreams. It teaches patience, inspires courage, and offers perspective. But most importantly, it shows that following your personal legend does not require leaving behind your heart, it requires bringing it fully into the journey. Santiago left the oasis with a deeper understanding. The world is alive, love is guiding, and the path to treasure is paved not only with courage, but with trust in the universe and in those who walk with us. Chapter 7: The Alchemist's Test. Courage is measured not by the absence of fear, but by the resolve to follow your heart despite it. Santiago's journey had taken him across cities, deserts, and oases. He had learned patience, love, and the subtle language of the world. But the ultimate teacher awaited him, the alchemist. The alchemist was no ordinary man. He radiated wisdom and power, moving as if in harmony with the universe itself. He saw into Santiago's heart, into his fears and desires, and recognized the boy's potential to achieve his personal legend. Lessons in transformation. The alchemist introduced Santiago to the concept of true alchemy, not merely turning metal into gold, but transforming the self. Fear, doubt, and hesitation were the metals to be refined, courage, wisdom, and love were the gold to be revealed. Every heart contains a treasure, the alchemist explained. But only those willing to face themselves will discover it. Santiago was challenged to confront the greatest fear he had ever known, the fear of loss, of death, of failure. The alchemist guided him through the desert, teaching him to listen to the omens and to trust the soul of the world. The test of courage. In the heart of the desert, danger appeared. Raiders threatened the caravan, and Santiago's resolve was tested. The alchemist instructed him to stay calm, to observe, and to act with clarity. In that moment, Santiago realized that fear was an illusion. It only gained power when he believed in it. He learned action through fear. Courage is choosing to move forward even when terror grips the heart. Trusting the universe, every moment, every choice, carries meaning if you observe and act wisely. Inner alchemy, the transformation of fear into confidence, is the first step toward mastering life's treasures. By facing the raiders with composure and wisdom, Santiago not only saved himself but also gained confidence in his ability to shape his destiny. Understanding life's deeper truths. The alchemist also taught Santiago to see beyond the material world. Gold, jewels, and treasure were symbols, not ends. True fulfillment came from understanding the interconnectedness of life, the soul of the world, the energy that binds all things. Santiago began to feel a deep harmony with everything around him. The desert, the wind, the oasis, even the people he met, all were expressions of the same universal energy. His journey was no longer just for treasure, it was for mastery of self and alignment with the universe. The lesson. Chapter 7 reminds us that life's greatest treasures lie not in wealth, but in transformation. Facing fears, trusting intuition, and observing the signs of the universe are the keys to unlocking true potential. Santiago's courage, patience, and wisdom had grown immensely. He was no longer a boy chasing a dream. He was a young man capable of reading the world, understanding its language, and stepping confidently toward his destiny. Chapter 8: The Treasure and the Truth. Sometimes, what we seek is closer than we ever imagined, but only the journey shows us how to find it. Santiago's heart raced as the pyramids appeared on the horizon, glowing in the desert sun. After months of travel, lessons, love, and transformation, he had finally arrived. The treasure he had dreamed of seemed within reach. Yet, the desert had taught him patience and awareness. He moved cautiously, listening to the omens, trusting the signs, and feeling the pulse of the universe guiding his every step. A final test. Even at the pyramids, life was not simple. As Santiago began to dig where his dreams had told him to look, local thieves appeared, threatening him and his hard-earned treasure. Santiago faced danger as he never had before. It was in this moment, under threat and fear, that he remembered the lessons of the alchemist: courage, observation, and transformation. He remained calm, and in the scuffle, he learned a startling truth: the true treasure. Santiago realized something profound. The treasure was not buried beneath the pyramids. The clues of the universe, the journey across the desert, the guidance of the alchemist, the lessons from the Englishman, and the love of Fatima all pointed to the same truth: the treasure had always been near his starting point, in the place where his journey began. Returning to Spain, Santiago found a chest of gold and jewels buried beneath a sycamore tree at the very church where he had once slept. The treasure he sought in Egypt had been waiting for him at home all along. The ultimate lesson is clear: the path shapes the treasure. The journey was the true reward, teaching Santiago courage, patience, love, faith, and the language of the world. Wealth and gold were only symbols of the growth he had achieved. Santiago had learned that personal legend requires action. Dreams remain wishes without the courage to pursue them. The universe conspires to help. Signs, omens, and guides appear when we are ready to listen. The journey is the treasure. Experiences, lessons, and transformations are worth more than gold. Love supports, it never hinders. Relationships aligned with our dreams strengthen rather than limit us. The circle completed. As Santiago stood under the same sky that had witnessed his dreams as a shepherd boy, he understood that every hardship, lesson, and encounter had led him here. The treasure, the true treasure, was always tied to growth, understanding, and the courage to follow one's heart. And in that moment, Santiago knew that any person who listens to their heart, observes the world, and pursues their personal legend can uncover their own treasure, sometimes far beyond what they could ever imagine. Epilogue: What the Alchemist teaches us today. When you follow your dream with courage, the universe conspires in your favor. Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist is not just a story about gold or adventure. It is a timeless guide to life. Listen to your heart and follow your dreams. Observe the signs the world gives you. Transform fear into courage. Understand that the journey itself is as valuable as any destination. Santiago's story reminds us that life's treasures are not only material, they are lessons, growth, and the joy of discovering who we truly are.